Has to blend in.
No, there on the calendar. Someone's drawn a little heart right above today's date.
Oh yes, the heart.
I told you it was all connected. Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy who's miles ahead when it comes to Marvel theories, and the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer has a lot to talk about in it. I have just done a big trailer breakdown discussing all of the Easter eggs and hidden details, but I thought I'd take some time to focus more on the theories that I have about the movie that might hopefully clear up some of the confusion. Also, I need to milk this, yeah, I'm self-employed, I've got to milk the popular topics. Now I am basing a lot of these theories on comic books, so if Marvel decide to adapt them, then there might be some spoilers ahead. If you enjoy the video, then please hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this each and every day. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our Spider-Man No Way Home trailer theories. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is how this all ties into the quote-unquote multiverse quadrilogy set out by Marvel. Whilst it's pretty obvious that variants and realities will all feature heavily in a lot of the MCU going forward, Kevin Feige said that Wandavision, Loki, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Doctor Strange 2 would all be heavily linked. It is rumoured that Loki will actually feature in the Multiverse of Madness, and that Wanda will also be the villain. I actually think that this movie will lean heavily into that, and judging by what we know from the comics, I think this film will tease what's going to happen next with Strange. He features heavily in the first look, and if we look at the Happy Birthday storyline, then it seems like this movie is going to pull several elements from it. Now during that book, Dormammu attacks New York and Strange attempts to stop him. He casts a spell, but Spider-Man interrupts this, and it breaks reality and time wide open. This is of course similar to what happens in the trailer when Peter interferes mid-spell with Strange, trying to erase the knowledge that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Peter ends up seeing his past and future, and he also fights several villains from his rogues gallery, which this movie seems to be setting up too. The book ends with Strange being punished by other sorcerers for breaking time, and all these similarities mean that he could be having to deal with the consequences of this. Wanda is currently the universe's most powerful witch, and I think if we're following on from a multiversal storyline, that Strange versus her just makes a lot of sense. Now speaking of the spell, after watching the trailer several times and really sitting on it, I actually think that it does indeed wipe MJ's memory, and Peter is pretty much completely alone in who knows that he's Spider-Man. Why I say this is because of the behind the scenes images and footage of the film in which we see Peter going to meet the character. Now because he's not getting mobbed, I guess everything works, but it looks like he's asking her out on a date. I think it would be kinda heartbreaking if it turned out that she no longer remembered him, and this is basically them having to start the entire relationship again. At one point in the trailer, MJ asks if there's any part of him that's relieved about his name being out there because he no longer has to lie, and Peter says he never wanted to lie to her. I think it would be such a great twist to have it so he's back in this position again, and having to decide whether to tell her or not because of all the issues it could cause. Now this idea of erasing people's memories actually pulls from the One More Day storyline, and though Strange appears in that to attempt to help Peter, it's actually Mephisto who comes through in the end. When I was reading the comments on my last video, I saw that a lot of you started theorizing that Strange might actually be Mephisto, and I began to feel a bit like the Doctor in Terminator. You know the lad, you've saw Terminator. He saw Terminator 2, he knew it was a Terminator, convinced himself it wasn't, only to realise that it was actually a Terminator. Well, that's basically what happened with me and Mephisto and that Devil in Disguise poster. Let's just not get into it again. Now I don't know if this is actually the case, but let's be honest, Strange is acting very weird in the teaser, and at one point he even chases Peter. Now this could be a number of things, and potentially the writers just wrote the character to be like this, as sometimes, writers, they just portray characters in certain ways in order to fit the story. However, yeah, it could be Mephisto, but I actually have a completely different theory. Potentially, when Strange rips the multiverse open, he's actually switched out with the darker variant of himself. I don't know who said it on the last video, as the comments are going wild right now. Million in a day, but let's just say it was you for argument's sake. Now on the last video, you actually theorized that the movie will tie in with What If, and we know that at some point in the season that Strange will come across an alternate, darker version of himself. When discussing the series, Brian Andrews, director of the show, also brought up that entry specifically and said the following: "The Doctor Strange episode is a tour de force. It ends in a particular way, you'll know it when you see it. when they actually see it, they're going to be like, I can't believe they did that shit. So it might be the case that we watch the old switcheroo happen there, though it could be the Captain Carter shot that we also saw in the trailer. I'm leaning more towards that, but it would at least make people realise why the old Doc is acting different. However, there is one more theory, and in Superhero Nexus's breakdown for the trailer, he said it could be Agatha Harkness. Not only does Strange wink similar to how she does, but he also casts a spell in the basement similar to our Aggie. I'll link his video below if you want to see it discussed more in detail. I think that's a really good idea that, yeah, it's definitely worth including. Now, in our last video, we also said that we think it's Matt Murdock who slams the papers down on the police desk. Many of you said he looked a bit too fat to be Matt, and from this point onwards, he shall be known as Fat Murdock. However, I do think that it's Charlie Cox, and when we see the guy outside the interrogation room, he looks very similar. Let's just stop body shaming the lad, yeah? I'm gonna be honest, I put a couple of pounds on during lockdown. We all did. Those donuts were delicious. Now, as for all the villains in the movie, I think it's safe to say that the multiverse is completely fucked at this point. Whilst there is potential that it's a J. Jonah Jameson situation, where the actor is just reprising an MCU version of the character, judging by what we know of the film, I think that they will definitely be pulled from the multiverse. Alfred Molina stated that his character comes into the movie in a scene that mirrors the river one from the end of Spider-Man 2, and thus we can gather from this that each featured villain is going to be from an alternate reality. Now, whether they are the same versions or not, we don't know for definite, but in the trailer I counted several of them, including Ock, the Green Goblin, Electro, and Sandman. Sandman actually looks like he's going to be one of the good guys, and he uses his body at one point to stop an electro blast, making me think that he's on Peter's side. Sandman was very much a tragic figure in the Raimiverse, and therefore I can see him switching teams. Now, if we are building towards the Sinister Six appearing in the movie, then that does leave a couple of openings. There's only 5 villains in the trailer, and whilst the plot leaks say that the Rhino is the final one, I actually think that it's going to be someone else. In the MCU, we very much dealt with the idea of identity in the post-credits scenes of the Spidey films. Homecoming ended with Aunt May finding out that Peter was Spider-Man, and the post-credits scene had Matt Gargan going directly to the Vulture and asking him if he knew who Spider-Man was. The one in Far From Home led to Peter's identity being exposed. I think if they don't bring Gargan in as the Scorpion, then that's a big missed opportunity. If there's only 5 members and the Sandman also allies himself with the good guys, then it just leaves a big space for Scorpion, and we might even get the Vulture featuring as a member, though I think he's also another character that wouldn't hurt Peter. Now, where this theory falls down is the whole memory erasure thing, but I think it just makes a lot of sense to have Gargan as a Sinister Six member, especially as he could be the one that's tied to the universe whilst the others are tourists. That final space could also end up being filled by one of Peter's most evil villains, someone that has stalked his entire existence, and a man that's followed his footsteps, constantly peering over his shoulder. Now that of course is Mr. Dickovich, and that door ain't gonna pay for itself, mate. Now I do think that the Green Goblin will be the leader of the group rather than Ock, and I would say that they've shown him over Willem Dafoe's version because this is a first teaser and they don't want to blow all of their web shooters in the first look. Therefore I think Dafoe is going to be the one heading things up, and that the encounter with Ock will happen in the middle of the movie. By the looks of it, the Sinister Six won't be the only people that Peter has to deal with either, and it looks like he'll be going toe to toe with Strange at some point. He might be the missing Sinister Six member, we don't know. Now I absolutely love the chase through New York, and the Mirror Dimension is an incredible place to have an action scene play out. Whether this completely destroys their friendship or not, we don't know, but if it leads to New York being attacked by some of the biggest villains in the Marvel Universe, then you can imagine that Strange won't be happy. Now I actually think that the film will have the death of Aunt May in it at some point. If we look at the comics, namely the Civil War storyline, Peter unmasked for the world to see in order to show that the Sokovia Accords worked, and this action had dire consequences. Kingpin sent assassins after him, and they critically injured May trying to get to him. There's a scene in the trailer where May and Peter set up in their apartment, almost like someone is walking in. She is notably absent in the majority of the trailer, and at one point it looks like MJ and Peter are living together in a completely new apartment, which makes me think they had to find somewhere else to live. Happy also gets a SWAT team put on him, which could be under a crime boss's command, and just looking at everything, I think that might be what happens in the film. Again, these are all theories, and they no doubt will have holes in them. I doubt I've got all of them right, yeah, but maybe it's one. But I thought, yeah, I just put them together after seeing the trailer and just watching it obsessively since it dropped. These are things I didn't get a chance to really talk about in the initial breakdown, and it was 20 minutes long, and I just didn't want to keep rambling and rambling for another 10 minutes. So, if you watched that, thanks for coming over here. But if you haven't watched it, then go and watch it, yeah? You picked the wrong one if you picked this first, I'll tell you that. Now, we are running a competition right now and giving away 3 MCU box sets on the 30th of August, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and just give your thoughts on the trailer. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If not, then thank you for sitting with me until the end of the video. I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself, peace.